Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this official day of spring. Actually, I think it was yesterday, but it was more official today, if you know what I mean. It was started, I think spring started late yesterday afternoon. Anywho, got a great show on tonight. Jimmy Garoppolo, man, what an offer he got in Vegas, and it wasn't anything to do with the Raiders. I'll talk about that. Alabama player in serious legal trouble. Got a soundbite from Nick Saban on that, a story to tell about that. Plus the Detroit Lions. Wow, what turning into a destination? What a difference a coach makes, a player makes. Just some type of change in environment. Change in attitude goes a long way. Talk about the Detroit Lions. DeAndre Hopkins, now he is out to be traded now that the Brandon Cooks trade has been done. And more on Sports Scope. Let's get our first and only break out of the way. I'll be back in 49 seconds, and we'll hit the ground running here on Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to sports, that is sports with an S, another S, scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program. All righty then, back here live. Now, if you want to listen to the playback of the program, the podcast, video podcast, you can get it on Spotify. I actually go back and listen to the show and see, analyze everything I said, or may have got something wrong there. I go back and do that. So Apple, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts, I download that. You can also check out the program on the YouTube channel. Make sure and subscribe there. I only got 25 subscribers, but that's more than I had a few months ago on the YouTube side. So been growing everywhere, pickles. But anyways, all the business aside, coming into this season, into this off season, teams should be, and fans of teams should have a new renowned feeling of optimism, not just because it's the draft coming up, and then teams have had free agency and everything. I noticed that Cam Newton, he was at the Pro Bowl. Thank you, Pickles. He was at the Pro Day. Excuse me. He was at the Pro Day for the Auburn. 34-year-old Cam Newton looks really good, strong arm. Guy's still in really good shape, tip-top shape. I'm sure he's completely healed up from all his injuries. But I say that is because the Jalen Hurts season last year should have everything to do with optimism because of the offense that they ran in Philadelphia. And people say, man, you sound like a broken record, because you've got players like C.J. Stroud, who now is the odds-on favorite to become the number one overall pick. He's the guy I said I would probably take if I had to pick one, judging by all of his body of work at this crop of quarterbacks. But also Anthony Richardson. Now he's not played that much. He's only got like 12 games of college, but you could see his build. He reminds me so much of Jalen Hurts. But my whole point is, listen to the pros and cons of Jalen Hurts coming out of college. Mind you, folks, he was a second-round pick. He was supposed to be a backup for then Carson Wentz when he was drafted. This is a scouting report going back a few years. Pros, arm strength, pocket awareness, extends plays, mobility, footwork, deep ball, upside, poise, throwing on the run. Cons, these are bad cons. Consistent accuracy, well, that's everything. Force balls into taking easy, forces balls instead of taking easy gains. Other words, doesn't take the check down. A lot of guys with strong arms have that mistake. Locks onto his receivers. That was about complaining about a guy like Hurts. He could not, Pickles, make his second read. Locks onto receivers, won't make all progressions. That is everything in the NFL. That takes years. You know, somebody at work, I'm out of Nashville, obviously. You can see my background. I was talking to a lady at work today, and I totally forgot that Steve McNair sat on the bench for 3 years for Tennessee. Not to mention Aaron Rodgers with his unorthodox style. And we know what those guys turned out to be. McNair won a co-MVP, and Aaron Rodgers has won like 4 and a Super Bowl. And McNair ended up going to a Super Bowl with the Titans. But consistent mechanics, those are everything. But you got to look at that read option system. My thing is go out, get the best offensive line that you can possibly get. You can get a guy like a Jalen. Jalen Hurts is so much easier to find in college than a Peyton Manning, than a guy that is just a natural like a Ben Roethlisberger or a Tom Brady. Guys that make those perfect reads and can split the ball through the defenders. It's really hard to find a Montana, a Marino. But the modern day college football player, a lot of spread, it's easier. And you say, well, we've been doing that for years. Now, not to the level and not to the extent and the makeup that Philadelphia Eagles had. That has not been duplicated. And that is a blueprint. Remember, this team, he was a eyelash away. If he doesn't get injured in that Bears game, he wins the MVP going away. He wins it going away. If he doesn't get hurt in that Bears game towards the end of the season, they still get the number 1 overall seed. That's how well they were playing. And remember, they had a double-digit lead at halftime, and he would have been overwhelmingly the MVP of the Super Bowl, and they should have won that game. They gave that game away. But when you look at these players, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, go out, duplicate that offense, get that offensive line. You need one true number 1 receiver. Mind you this, you got a guy on his rookie contract. Not one true number 1 receiver. A.J. Brown here out of Tennessee, right? That they made. And I made this note to myself. If they ran just 25% of their plays, not to beat a dead horse, but if the Philadelphia Eagles had 25% of their plays for the running back done out of the normal I formation, that team is holding their second Super Bowl trophy since 2017. It is that close. That Super Bowl was that close. But if I'm the Colts, I do everything I get to do to get a guy like a Stroud. Now if they get a Richardson, it's going to be more of a project. But that offense is so user friendly. It's so user friendly for these college quarterbacks. You may be able to throw in a his name just slipped my mind. Hendon Hooker from University of Tennessee in that. So you could actually see the Colts really good offensive line, way underrated. Remember, this team beat the Chiefs last year, and defensively, now Carolina, they got rid of their leading receiver, but defensively, they're there. Carolina's there. They're there defensively. They've got some pieces on their offensive line. They need to go out and get a true number 1 receiver, but they're going to get a guy on his rookie contract you can use that offense, and you don't have to have the best defense. Just have a really good offensive line and take away some of those head-on quarterback runs, and use just a little bit of pro style, just a little bit, and that's for your running plays to get your running back some room to run instead of giving him that ball out of the shotgun. But a Cam Newton, that makes that workout today that much more better. If you look, and Pickles calls them, what do you call these guys? Techno geeks. Those type of offenses, you put in a little bit of pro style, you've got a quarterback that you can go all the way with. I don't think the league is going to adjust that much, because he wasn't really making a lot of second reads. He was making the run was so good. They executed it so well that he was just making one reads last year, because the defense, they froze the defense in their place. That Eagles team, who was in every game. I mean, that Eagles team last year, they could have went 17-0. Easy. They wouldn't blown out in any game. And but the play action was so good that AJ Brown, I'm looking at some of his highlights, he was looking open and just wide open. And I know he could catch the ball in traffic anyways. But, that type of offense, it's user-friendly. It's going right into college, right into the pros. And I'm sure that's what Jim Irsay, when he hired Shane Steichen, the offensive coordinator for the Colts there, that's what he had in mind. He said, man, I can get one of these quarterbacks. We can keep it simple. We've got the offensive line. We've got players on the defensive line. We need some playmakers at receiver. That's a lot easier to get now than it was years ago. Bada bing, bada boom. I just think it's really that simple, and I think that is what a lot of the owners are thinking around the league. Now Josh McDaniels, totally different story, much more complex offense. Belichick and what Brady did and all that, much more complex offense. Even Kyle Shanahan, much more complex. That is more about divvying out everything. But that read option that they run it so well in Philadelphia last year, and I think it can be duplicated. Pickle says Richardson could be great. They would be great prospects to run that type of offense. So just food for thought. And I'm sure a lot of organizations are sitting there thinking about that today. Okay, other news, and Rappaport put out this morning bright and early that we know that Brandon Cooks was traded yesterday to the Dallas Cowboys. He says, as the status of Arizona, talking about the Dallas Cowboy Brandon Cooks trade from Houston, in Rappaport NFL Network, as the status of Arizona star DeAndre Hopkins comes into focus, talks are ramping up among the interested teams, sources say, similar to Brandon Cooks. Okay, and he mentioned what made an altered contract. This guy has Pickles $30 million cap hit. I mean, that is NFL money. But I've got a theory on these guys. He's 31 years old. $30-something million cap hit, but he was suspended last year for 8 games for PEDs. Didn't even appeal it. He just took it, and he still caught 64 balls, 7 catches per game with what, 3 quarterbacks there. So he'll have to restructure. And like Jim Jeffcoat, former Dallas Cowboy that came on the program quite a few times, says, all receivers are divas. All receivers are divas, And a guy like this with a salary like that, I say this about, by the way, plus him and Kyler Murray had a little spat on Hard Knocks. a couple of times. He's like, I'm going to get you the ball, man. I'm going to get you the ball. He's hounding Kyler Murray before Murray got hurt. But if you think about players, Randy Moss, Antonio Brown, Terrell Owens, especially after they went to 2 and 3 different teams, these guys, I know how to play these guys. They are very talented. They are lightning in a bottle to a team. They are short-term rental players. They lose concentration really quick, but they are good when you keep them there very short-term. Think about guys like, let's see, for example, Randy Moss on his best behavior first 2 years. Broke record the first year. Should have won the Super Bowl that first year with New England. Then he started bad-mouthing the team and everything. Before you know it, he gets traded on their bye week. Antonio Brown. We know about his fallouts with the Raiders, with the Steelers prior to that. New England comes to Tampa, boom, wins the Super Bowl. I said, okay, do away with it. Don't re-sign him. Don't re-sign him. We know how it ended. The guy took his clothes off and ran out of the stadium, went crazy. So, but and I'm not saying that Hopkins is this type of guy. There's something about, catching long passes out in the middle of the field. There's something about that just gets in a guy's head. It's euphoric feeling to catch a football over someone else and a lot of people watching, and it kind of goes to the players' heads, But when you're a big star like that, like these guys, they want money, and after they get that initial success, especially Terrell Owens, remember how he made a name for himself with the amazing catch back in '99 to win a playoff game for the 49ers, But these players, you have them for short spans. They get bored easy. They get agitated easy. After a while, they want more money. They're not getting the ball enough. But if you get them for like 2 or 3 years, or preferably 2, you're either have a young quarterback on a rookie contract. You want to up the ante for that particular year, like the Patriots, like I've been saying, a Mac Jones. You want to do that. Or if you have a veteran team that you feel like you're one game away, you're 1 or 2 games away, 1 or 2 plays away, you bring this guy in, you restructure everybody around him, make him feel welcome. Don't assume after you have initial success that it's all going to be peaches and grapes afterwards, and we're all going to hold hands and sing kumbaya. No, that's not going to happen with these receivers. I've seen it. I've seen it 1,000 times, even to the ones who are quiet, but still want big money. There's something about that position that and like Jim said, he said, hey, but they're valuable. They're needed. But Hopkins is a guy that could still play at a very high level, and I think he would fit in there. They'll restructure his contract. He's 31. He'll be 31 in the time the season starts. Actually, he's 30 right now. So you can get him this year and next year and be good. And then Belichick knows in the back of his mind, okay, now I got to move on. Hopefully, Mac Jones, we've got some success out of Mac Jones. We have brought in a successor for Hopkins. We don't want to keep him past this because something to go down. But they're short-term rental guys. They're lightning in the bucket to put you over the top. And that's who he is. That's who most of these guys are. I just don't want and I think they could get a late 3rd or 4th round pick for him. And I believe Arizona wants to move on. They want to get out of that crazy contract and that $30 million cap hit, and they want to put some other pieces around their quarterback and see how things up, because they've got Kyler Murray's locked up there for a number of years. Remember, he signed an extension last year. Hopkins wanted a ridiculous amount of money, 20-something plus million a few years ago from Houston, and that's why Bill O'Brien, I agree with him. They should have moved on from him, and they did, and got some pretty good draft picks. Now, David Johnson was an awful part of that trade. Probably could have got more compensation for him, but and look at Tyreek Hill. Everybody says, "Oh, they're gonna miss Tyreek Hill," and I'm like, no, they got a lot for him. He's going to be fine in Miami. He'll look good early, and he did. And Kansas City will be fine. Well, they won the Super Bowl, so I was right again. But these receivers, they're rentals. You rent them and you move on. You rarely play receivers big money. Maybe you pay one before the big money hits in. You want to move off that receiver and have a one that you've drafted. Hopefully you're drafting right and bring that player in so he's not pressuring your quarterback to throw him the ball even when he's not open. Again, DeAndre Hopkins hollering at Kyler Murray, throw me the ball, and Kyler Murray's like, I'm going to get you the ball, man. I'm going to get you the ball. And Murray throws a good deep ball. And they've had some success together. He had over 100 catches, I want to say, in 2020 with Kyler Murray. So the guy can still play, And Pickle says, yeah, and that was during the Hard Knocks, the same Hard Knocks when they played the Patriots. Bill Belichick, and he says, hey, man, I love what you do, man. You're one of the best. I only have to play ever so many years because of the rotation there. And, Keith Engel comes on the program. He says he was joking around saying, man, I hope that they don't get hope that they don't get a tampering charge. But somebody's going to trade for Hopkins. But, if you have that in mind, if you have an out in mind with the receiver, if you sign him to 3 years, hold him for 2, it's just, you're better off doing that. And that's not just certain receivers. That is all true number one receivers, highly rated guys, because you'll find a sucker, especially if that player is still in his prime. You'll find a sucker around the league. They're going to bring fantasy points. The owner may like him for whatever reason. And Pickle says every team needs a deep ball threat. Yeah, you want to keep these guys honest. And that's what really put that Philadelphia team over the top. Most of those throws, going back to that story, most of those throws that Hurts was throwing, they were just go routes. Just go deep. Just go deep. And Brown was just making them, man. And, of course, he's a playmaker, too. So, anyways, Hopkins, like I said, I think the best deal would be for him to go to New England. There'll be some other takers out there, somebody in that situation. One player to go, or you've got that quarterback on that rookie contract, and you're having problems drafting receivers like a New England, and you need him. Like Tennessee, that wouldn't be a good fit in Tennessee. They've already got the veteran quarterback. They've got the young receiver. He's got 2 years. I think Burks will have a bigger year this year. Don't need to pay all that extra money to a guy like a Hopkins when you can't get him the ball because you're still working out your offensive line. That's an example of a team not to go after a DeAndre Hopkins. Okay. I've been complimentary over the offseason of this Detroit Lions team. And that's why I brought in Freddie the Pizza Man. This guy's avid Detroit Lions fan, avid Detroit Lions everything. And I wasn't just trying to get a guest on the program and sucking up to him. That's not how I roll. I will talk to myself and I'll cut the program short if I don't have a guest and I don't have nothing to talk about. I don't build this program on guests. But my thing is, this Lions team, been saying it since the end of last season into the offseason. Now, not only did they finish well, they swept Green Bay. They started off 1-6, had to let go of their defensive backs coach, made some adjustments on defense. Since the offseason, Ben Johnson, their offensive coordinator, says, I want to stay here. I feel like we're doing something special here. He was being mentioned in as far as head coaching jobs. Very young guy, too. Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. Now that free agency started last week, free agents are starting to talk about. They're starting to talk about wanting to play for Dan Campbell. Cam Sutton, the cornerback here from the Pittsburgh Steelers, says, hey, man, players around the NFL want to play for Dan Campbell. He says it's quite a buzz around the league coming in for a Dan Campbell. He says, seeing what he's doing around the league, it's exhilarating, man. He says, I love this guy. Not just me speaking, but you see how far it spreads around the league. Guys want to play for him. Guys love the energy and everything he brings, Sutton says. On top of that, speaking of the Eagles, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, the safety, who was rumored, I thought that they were going to try to work out something. Remember the Eagles, they brought back Darius Slay, the cornerback, which I think they should have. Still got plenty left in the tank. They brought back James Bradbury, but Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, a safety there that they got from a trade from the Saints, tied the league in interceptions. Instead of going back to a team that made it to the Super Bowl last year, nope. He goes to the Detroit Lions. So Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is there at safety. You got Sutton there from Pittsburgh at cornerback. And, of course, you got Jeff Okudah. Now, Okudah, remember, he's coming off a major injury. You know, he got hurt his rookie year, coming off a major injury. He was hit and miss last year. Remember early last year when Jeff Okudah, the cornerback, he was like the 4th pick overall. Now, that wasn't this general manager nor Dan Campbell's group that picked Okudah. He was with the other general manager, Jeff Okudah. But he actually played really well against Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings the first time. Now, the second time they played, kudos to the Vikings staff. They started moving Jefferson around and getting him the ball more in open space. And this guy started taking off, man. I mean, Jefferson had a good game. But you got to look at – so Okudah's not a bad corner now. He's not terrible. He's not great, but he's still a fairly good corner, and he's still listed as a starter. So you put those 3 guys in the secondary, plus they had Aiden Hutchinson last year. They need defense on across the middle of the field. They need defensive tackle. They can use help at linebacker, but I would probably get 2 defensive linemen myself there and maybe a linebacker later on in the draft because you don't need great linebackers to win in this league. But this team, remember, they've got the 6th pick overall. There's a chance they may take a quarterback. They may take Richardson out of Florida and have him sit down behind Goff, or they may take at the 6th pick. There's edge rushers there that can play on the opposite side. There's a guy out of Texas Tech. There's the other Georgia guy. Nolan Smith ran in the 4.3s, by the way. And they've also, remember, that 6th pick was from the Rams. And they got the 18th pick. Me personally, Pickles, I would go all defense. I would go all. They got 2 firsts, 2 seconds. They traded TJ Hockenson in division. I thought this was crazy. They traded their tight end in division for a 2nd-round pick. So they got Minnesota's 2nd-round pick. They've got the Rams' 1st-round pick. They've got their 1st-round pick, their 2nd-round pick. And like I said before, you can build a defense a lot easier than you can build an offense. Because all defense is straight ahead, be aggressive, pass rush, you know. But they may be able to find a way to get Will Anderson out of Alabama. Jalen Carter would be perfect. But Carter was we already know about the driving incident He's had multiple. He's had 2 incidents with driving incidents, not to mention obviously the death there of the staff worker in the drag racing thing. But he's had another speeding ticket. Plus, he showed up to his workout out of shape and overweight at his own pro day. But he is a heck of a defensive. You might be able to get him late in the first or in the second round. And he was before all this stuff came out at the beginning of the draft, the offseason process, just after they won the national championship. Some mock drafts had Jalen Carter as the number 1 overall prospect. Some people's had him as going as number 1 overall to the Chicago Bears. And like I was telling Freddie the Pizza Man, and that's the beauty of this league. Think about this. The Detroit Lions hadn't won a playoff game since January of 1992. That was with Barry Sanders. They hadn't won a playoff game since January of 1992 in the playoffs. 31 years. And now Dan Campbell has brought such good vibrations. Now you're getting a Detroit. That's like a sentence, but you need the money. So you're a pro player. You're going to go move to Detroit. You got to finish up your contract because you're making millions of dollars. You do it. But they don't get free agents like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson or Cam Sutton. They don't get guys like that. But Dan Campbell, you get the right quarterback or you get the right coach, right quarterback, and Joe Burrow. Look what Joe Burrow's done for Cincinnati. Look what Dan Campbell so far. Now, they haven't won the playoff games yet, but I think they will this year. I think they'll be favored, even if Rodgers comes back. But can you imagine if Rodgers even comes back to the Packers? How awkward would that be? Look at the bad defensive problems that Minnesota's having. Chicago really hasn't addressed their offensive line, and they're still rebuilding. Excuse me. Man. Allergies. Okay. So 2 firsts, 2 seconds. And they've already added 2 pieces on their Carter may fall to Detroit today. It's what Mel Kiper says. Pickle says Dan Campbell looks like the Big Lebowski. Yeah, very funny movie. I've seen that movie 10 times probably. Because I'm a big bowler guy. I love bowling. John Goodman in it. Mel Kiper says Carter could fall to Detroit today. Yeah, he put his updated mock draft out. Everybody was having Carter going about 3rd to Arizona before this stuff started coming out, and now it's came out. So Detroit is really set up to make a run next year. I think they'll be favored in the North. I could take it a step farther. As much as I liked what Philadelphia has done, no team has went back to the Super Bowl. And I said this when I was talking about Dallas yesterday. And since the salary cap era began in 94, not named New England. Not named New England. No team that has lost the Super Bowl since 1994, not named the New England Patriots, has gotten back. I do not think the Eagles will get back. So the NFC, look how bad the quarterback play is. Look how bad the quarterback play is. You're having great quarterbacks constantly retire. You don't know what Rodgers is going to do. Dallas, they're still Dallas, but Dallas would be in it. The 49ers will be in it. But you add in all these young players, these high draft picks with these veteran defensive backs, and another year with Dan Campbell, another year with Ben Johnson, this offensive line, that running game, that receiving core. By the way, Jameis Williams, the wide receiver out of Alabama, didn't play until the middle of the season because he was coming back from injury. So you put him, Amon St. Brown there. They've got 2 big play guys. He may be better than Brown, and Brown's by far their number 1 guy, Amon St. Brown. So plus their running game, that line, all they need is a defensive line. They got a pretty good pass rush with Aiden Hutchinson. Hutchinson was right there for Rookie of the Year for most of the year, but Gardner Johnson was this. Pro Football Focus had him as the best cornerback in the league over everybody. So the Lions are legit. That's a great story. That is the beauty of the NFL. You know, Cleveland looks good next year. Dumpster fire at Cincinnati, but dumpster fire for years and years. Detroit, one playoff win since 1992. Look like they're going to be favored to win the North next year. That's the beauty. You rarely see this in baseball or the NBA. I can't believe I'm talking about the Detroit Lions. But hey, I was wrong about it. I mean, I thought, he's one of these cliche guys. He's a rah-rah guy. He'll be done in a few years, run the ball, stop the run. And he's made it. You know, what really won me over for him is when he started practicing full pads. Remember, there's two Hard Knocks. They had the preseason Hard Knocks last year, which had Detroit. Then they had the in-season Hard Knocks, which had Arizona. The preseason Hard Knocks, they're practicing in full pads, like week one of preseason practice, training camp. And he says, guys, studies say, and he's giving the guys a study. Studies say that this will keep us from getting injured if we start hitting early. He said, I know you guys are looking at me funny, like, what the bleep's going on? Nobody else is doing this. Nobody else is hitting week one and the training camp. Well, guess what? They didn't have that many injuries. They had to learn how to win because they're so used to being losers, but they didn't have that many injuries. Other than the running back, the guy out of Georgia, is a really good player. He's been pretty banged up here lately, and they had Jamal Williams there. But for the most part, they, And look, Pickles, he's saying studies say that if we hit early, we're going to be fine. If you look at Detroit, they didn't have any major injuries. You would think as physical as Aiden Hutchinson played, you'd think he would be. No, he wasn't. He was playing fine. He was playing at a high level most of the year. And quite frankly, he turned out to be better than the number one pick from Georgia. That guy had some big plays here and there, but he wasn't as consistent as Hutchinson was week in and week out for Detroit. But my whole point about them hitting in preseason was that he was doing the analytics. He's got some study about him. He's just not a meathead, even though he sounds like a meathead sometimes. And he's 110% authentic, Dan Campbell. Total opposite of a Matt Patricia. Matt Patricia's trying to be Belichick. All those former Belichick coaches are trying to be Belichick. And the players see right through that. And you're not going to get their best. Dan Campbell, 100% authentic. He also, he said, hey, listen, I just want us to be healthy later on in the season, guys. We need to hit early so we can get our bodies acclimated to this. And he was right. He was right. They were right in it to the end now. They had a bad game on Christmas Day against Carolina, but that was the maturation process of learning how to become a winner on a consistent basis. And towards the end of the season, he got that out of Detroit. And this year, now they need to win this year because the pressure's on, but I think they will. And they are going to make that maturation process. Remember, they also beat Minnesota this year too. So kudos to the Detroit Lions being a free agent destination. Who would have thought? All righty then. Let me see. Where should I go next? I'm rolling the wheel here, Pickles. I'm rolling the wheel. Okay. I'm going to do a college story. Then I'm going to jump back and end the program on a Jimmy Garoppolo story. A much lighter note for Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, as you know, Alabama basketball. Pickle says Hutchinson's a house of fire pass rusher. Yes, he is. Alabama basketball, they had the incident earlier back in January, tragedy involving Brandon Miller. They had a player that wasn't Miller, was a bench player, but he handed a gun to somebody. Guy shot a woman for not going out on a date with him or something of that nature. Remember, Miller drove the gun there, but he didn't get out of the car. Long story short, he didn't get in any trouble, and it looked bad. It was a bad situation for the program and everything. And their basketball team is their own. They got a clean path to the Final Four. They got 2 more games to get to the Final Four. And what is it, 4? Let's see, 16, 8, Final Four, 4 to get to the national championship. Anywho, over the weekend, it was a few days ago, this Tony Mitchell, the football player, 6'1", 4-star cornerback, freshman, just signed, 4-star guy to go play with Alabama. So if you're a 4-star guy, you're 6'1", you're an Alabama native, you're going to go play for Nick Saban. You're thinking, okay, it's signing day. It's, let's say, February. I don't know when he signed. He might have signed early. February this year, 2023. In April of 2026, because you got 23, 24, 25 season. In April 26, you're thinking NFL contract, baby. First day. I'm going to outwork everybody. And, of course, we know what happened here if you've been reading the news. Tony Mitchell was, I want to say, Mitchell was attempting to flee police in Florida last week before being arrested, according to a report attained by AL.com. He was doing 141 miles an hour, and he was arrested with 226 grams of marijuana and $7,000 in cash. So he's got a multiple list of charges here. Now, I'll say this, and I brought up the Alabama basketball stuff because Nate Oakes, the coach of the basketball team, says wrong place, wrong time. Talking about Brandon Miller, he got a lot of heat for that. The way he phrased that about Brandon Miller, he went back and apologized. Here's Nick Saban talking about suspending this player. What's his name? Make sure. Tony Mitchell. But he comments, he takes a little dab at Nate Oakes, the basketball coach, and then his suspension. Nick Saban.
Tony Mitchell has been suspended from the team on all team activities until we gather more information about the situation and what his legal circumstance is. And, guys, everybody's got an opportunity to make choices and decisions. There's no such thing in being at the wrong place at the wrong time. You got to be responsible for who you're with, who you're around, and what you do, who you associate yourself with, and the situations that you put yourself in. So it is what it is, but there is, cause and effect when you make, choices and decisions that put you in bad situations. So Tony.
Yeah. And so he took a dab there at Nate Oakes, the basketball coach. Now, I will say this. As doing research for the program, I did look back at the Musa Muhammad story. Musa Muhammad was a player for Nick Saban back in 1993. He was a player for Saban at Michigan State. He was a player for Michigan State back in 1993, and he got into some trouble. He when I first looked at this situation, I thought, why don't you just kick him off the team? Those are felony charges. Obviously, you got that kind of money, that many grams of marijuana. It looks like you're reselling it. It looks bad. But Musa Muhammad in 93 was pulled over for a traffic stop, and cops found a loaded .38 caliber gun in his glove compartment. He told police he said he was hunting squirrels, perhaps a curious choice of armament for the job, and arrest violated his probation for previous possession of marijuana. He was sentenced to 90 days for a probation violation. So he got 90 days in jail for a probation violation. He was also arrested on a gun and marijuana charge later on. Muhammad said he was grateful for getting a second chance at Michigan State. And he later on played in the NFL. I think he's like president of a company, and he thanks personally Nick Saban for that. As I said before about this, Nick Saban's players do get in trouble, but you rarely hear about his players getting in trouble a second time while they're playing for him. And so I don't know how this situation is going to play out. That one seems really serious. This seems pretty borderline of maybe getting kicked off the team. But I do like what Saban said. Hey, listen, man, there's consequences for life. This is not wrong place, wrong time. You have to be confrontational with your friends sometimes. That's what I said about Brandon Miller. Now, that case is much more serious because there's a person who's dead in that particular situation. Brandon Miller should have said, no, I'm not taking that gun back there. I'm going to drive this gun over here. You could pick it up from my apartment, but I'm not going to take this gun to you. And I think Nick Saban saw that, and that's how he's going to react. I don't know how this is going to play out, but I do trust the decision-making he's made. And quite frankly, Saban says, listen, if I can keep the guys on the team, I'll keep them on the team. Because you'd rather have them get the guidance being under our leadership than us letting them go out there and continue to make these mistakes. Now, so plus he's got a loaded football team. He's very deep. He can cut any player on the team and be okay. Some people say, nah, if it was a quarterback, he would did this. If it was this type, no, trust me. That team is like 3 or 4 deep at every position. They can cut a guy and not lose any sleep. But I do think he's like a father figure to these guys. And you say, well, why do these guys do these stupid things? You know, I grew up in an environment like that. I went to school with guys who were very good athletes, but they wanted to sell drugs on the side. You pick up some bad habits. You know, a lot of these guys that come from these environments, a lot of that's what makes them a good football player. There's a level of desperation. One parent home. They see football as the only out. They know the odds are stacked against them to make the NFL, but they're so driven to get out of that environment that they're willing to work the extra mile. But in the meantime, they got bad influences all around them. They still think that they can sell some little pot or some dope on the side and still skate by and get it because they don't have that authority figure, that father figure to get in their rear end to say, that's stupid. That's stupid. Like I did. My dad, you know, my parents were divorced. My dad would tell me, whenever you do something stupid, he'd say, you know, what you did was stupid. It's stupid now. It's stupid 6 months from now. Saban's kind of like that father figure. Remember Mike Zimmerman, the defensive coordinator for and former head coach of Minnesota Vikings? You know, Pac-Man got in so much trouble with Tennessee and Dallas, mainly Tennessee. But he said, I looked at Mike Zimmer as a father figure, you know? He was that father figure. And a lot of players said that about Mike Zimmer. So you could look at it that way. And, you know, again, sounds like a drug dealer resume to me. Threatened a program at Alabama. And that's the thing. And thank you, Kathy. I appreciate that. So we'll see how this plays out. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't get kicked off the team. Now, remember, God, I can't remember. What's the name of the running back there, guys, for Cincinnati? The Cincinnati Bengals running back, Pickles. Anyways, that running back, when he went to college, remember, he punched a woman. He punched a woman in college at Oklahoma. And Bob Stoops suspended. He got in trouble, but legal trouble. But also Bob Stoops suspended him for a whole season. And they brought him back, and he ended up getting drafted in the second round to the NFL. But he took his suspension. And he had some issue. He had an issue here recently, but it was something to do with his sister. But that player, and his name is slipping my mind. Pickles, what's that running back's name for the Bengals? It'll come to me here in a minute. But that player turned out, to be okay, and he ended up making it. But so sometimes just because you have an incident, and some incidents look worse than others, trust me, I've seen them. It's not always, being kicked off the team. Sometimes you get like you just get a 1 year suspension. Nah, it wasn't Dylan. It was the current one, Pickles. It was the current running back. Now, he may get cut, though, this year. He may get cut this year. But he's the guy that's currently on the team. It'll come up to me here in just a second. I'm going to look it up real quick. Joe Mixon. Yeah. So it was Joe Mixon his freshman year. It's on video, too. It's a bad look. But, I do believe in second chances, and hopefully that'll work out. But a guy like Saban, he has such a strong, authoritative type of – I don't think he's one of these guys that tells the media one thing and treats the player another thing. Clinton Dix is a former player, and I guess he's an assistant defensive backs coach or something up there. And he just recently retired from the NFL. And he tweeted out the other day, a couple of weeks ago, he said, well, it's the first time I got my butt chewed out by Coach Saban. And he's like, LOL, probably won't be the last as being a coach. Yeah, Mixon. The Dylan also played with them, and he got some issues. So we'll see how it works out. I like what he said, like how he's handled it. The guy suspended. But I'm not guaranteeing he's going to kick him off the team because of Musa Muhammad did 90 days in jail and, stayed with Nick Saban a few more years, turned out to be a pretty good pro. Okay. On a brighter note, back to the NFL, Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, last week he signed with the Raiders 3 years, gave him a lot of money there. He's went on to sign with the Raiders. Now, Garoppolo was offered, this was on TMZ. Now, this guy's considered like a Joe Namath of our, to some of your older viewers of our generation. 31-year-old player, tall guy, dark hair. Women like him. He's a ladies' man. 2 brothel workers, and said that they would, just because they're big Raiders fans and they're big, air quote, Jimmy Garoppolo fans, will offer him free sex. They are licensed sex workers or whatever, brothel workers, bunny ranch workers, because they like him personally, and they're big fans of the Raiders. Now, remember Garoppolo back in 2018, he was caught. He got into a little bit of hot water with the team for being a distraction for dating a porn star. So this guy's like the super bachelor, But this is what TMZ says. This one lady here, she said he deserves free sex for just joining our team, Bell says, but he gets free sex for life from us because he's such a legit babe. That's what she says. So that makes me think about maybe that's why the coaches wanted him coming up there, Pickles. And, you hear about him being a good locker room guy. You hear about him being a good locker room guy. I think that the players is thinking, well, this guy can go down the road and pick up women. He's like the Elvis Presley of the team. And these women are pretty good looking. Now, I'm not going to judge him. The two lovely ladies, Caitlin Bell and Alice Little of the famous Chicken Ranch brothel. This is on TMZ, Pickles. And they tell us, TMZ, they're really excited. The heartthrob, in air quotes, is moving to their neck of the woods after inking a 3-year deal. The licensed workers want to show Jimmy G how grateful they are now that he's moving from the Bay Area to Las Vegas for a free for life sex pack. Now, so what if So what if he takes this job? Or what if he takes this opportunity? He wouldn't tell nobody, of course. He'll get criticized by the media. But you're worth, he's already signed a $100 million contract, but you really don't take that money home in California. Say he's worth $80 million. Do you take you take the offer there for free? Do you tip? What's the protocol for something like that? You're a single guy, 31, and you get something like this offered. Now, he hasn't commented because he got in trouble a few years ago for dating a porn star. He didn't get in trouble for dating a porn star while he was a 49er back in 2018. He's about mid-20s. He got in trouble for going to TMZ paparazzi hotspots with that porn star in 2018 because the organization didn't want to get questions about it. So they talked to him in private. That's what I've heard. Now, this guy, not only to mention this type of stuff, he would have a great book. I was watching, I saw this on social media. I think it was on Twitter, Pickles. And he was at a Golden State Warriors game last month. It might have been in January. And he had courtside seats. And all the dancers for the Golden State Warriors, the cheerleaders, the dance squad, women, all went down there to meet Jimmy Garoppolo. This guy is like the ultimate Joe Namath of the modern day football era. Single dude, and he kind of reminds me of Derek Jeter. Jeter didn't get married till he's 40. Think about it. You're playing for the Yankees, starting shortstop, big playmaker. He ended up winning 4 championships with the Yankees. When I was living there in 2002, and of course, Carlos, he lived in New York, he knows. He would give women gift bags, dates and stuff that would go to his place or whatever. He'd get them really nice gift bags. And that was like his thing. He was a gentleman about everything. And they ended up getting to the New York Post, ended up picking that up. He ended up staying a bachelor till he was 40, man. He just got married a few years ago, and he owns part of the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. So the Garoppolo is this year's Joe Namath / Alex Rodriguez. Now, it would be better if he's, wins a Super Bowl. But you got to think, I wonder if you just kind of wonder if the players wanted him for this. Maybe Josh McDaniels. I think McDaniels may be married. Or Mark Davis say, hey, listen, man, Jimmy, what Lady Tigers that he don't have that we can pick up. So not to hear to Pickle says when you should ignore offers, and that's probably what he'll do. But I'll tell you what, it is a good it's a good gesture, and I'm not a hater like that. He won't publicly say anything about this. I don't blame him because he got in trouble a few years ago for it because he don't want everybody else asking about it. But that don't stop TMZ from writing these type of stories about Garoppolo. But I will say this, after he's done, Pickles, that would be one heck of a tell-all book. He can have one of those exclusive podcasts where you pay to listen to it, and just to say Jimmy Garoppolo's nightlife, I'd like to bring him on Sports Scope. Now, I don't think he'd do it. He probably want to do his own thing and ask him about some of this stuff. We could G-rate it up enough. We'll give you the right idea. Lord forgive me. But I think it would be an interesting story. Now, you know, it helps a lot more if you can stay healthy as a quarterback and actually win. But that doesn't say that the ladies aren't crazy about Garoppolo, but it would be that much better if you actually won a Super Bowl. So maybe that was part of the reason why that Tom Brady wanted to get him out of New England. Maybe Brady wasn't worried about his job. Maybe Brady was jealous because maybe some of the other women were looking at him. Maybe Giselle may have looked at him. But I thought that was a pretty cool little story. That was one of them rock star like stories there that you don't really hear about much nowadays as we did before. People like Elvis Presley and, you know, the Beatles and all that. But I thought that was pretty cool. And you hope old Jimmy don't get in too much trouble in Vegas, like a lot of the other players have. But he's older now. I think he'll be all right. But if you guys like the show, share the show. I'll be back tomorrow, same place, same time. And Pickle says Giselle may have been looking, you know, and that very well may have been true. I'm trying to get John Restano back on, but he ain't got back to me. I think he's busy with his day job. I was wanting to ask John about his what's he think about this Bears off season. But if not, there's a few other stories, folks, that I did not get to. A few of the stories that I did not get to today, and I will get to tomorrow, and whatever breaks between today and tomorrow. We still haven't heard nothing on Lamar Jackson, and we still ain't heard nothing on Aaron Rodgers, and those stories can break anytime. So if you guys like the show, again, share the show. Same place, same time, here tomorrow on Sports Scope. I'll be back.